Tonight, the Maghreb is on edge. Two giant neighbors, Algeria and Morocco, are locked in a quiet, cold war, and Western Sahara is the battlefield. I am MJ Nye, and this is MJ Pulse News Situation Room. We are live in our Situation Room, and the story we are about to unpack is a geopolitical time bomb that has been ticking for half a century. We're going to show you how a colonial borderline drawn in the sand became a flashpoint for regional dominance. We will reveal how recent UN Security Council resolutions have tilted the diplomatic balance decisively toward Morocco's autonomy plan, leaving Algeria increasingly isolated. And we will expose how your social media feed is the new front line, where both sides are fighting a war for your opinion. Stay to the end, because what is happening between Algeria and Morocco is not just about a desert. It is about gas, ports, global powers, and your online feed being used as a battlefield. So, how did this all start? Let's rewind. Picture this: colonial-era North Africa. On one side, you have the French-administered territory of Algeria. On the other, the ancient Moroccan monarchy. The borders between them, drawn by France, often arbitrarily, creating lines in the sand that both nations would later contest, fueling decades of bitterness. That bitterness exploded just 1 year after Algeria won its hard-fought independence. The year is 1963. The event? The Sand War. A brief but brutal border conflict that left deep scars of mistrust that have never truly healed. From that moment on, each country forged a national identity in opposition to the other. For Morocco, it's the story of a historic kingdom. It views Western Sahara as its rightful southern provinces, a piece of its sovereign territory torn away by colonialism. For the Moroccan people and its government, this is a non-negotiable, sacred cause. For Algeria, the story is one of revolutionary struggle. It built its entire post-colonial identity and diplomatic prestige on supporting anti-colonial movements and the principle of self-determination. This is not just foreign policy, it is part of its national DNA. Two models, two memories, one long border, and a dispute that both governments used to rally patriotism at home. The fuse was truly lit in 1975. As Spain, the colonial power, withdrew from Western Sahara, Morocco moved in, framing it as a moment of decolonization and national reunification. This was the famous Green March, but Algeria saw it differently. It threw its full support behind a new guerrilla movement, the Polisario Front, which declared the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic and launched a war for independence. What followed was 16 years of brutal guerrilla warfare across the desert. A key consequence was the establishment of massive refugee camps around Tindouf in southwestern Algeria. These camps, intended to be temporary, became permanent cities of displacement, creating a long-term humanitarian crisis and a powerful political tool. In 1991, the UN brokered a ceasefire with a crucial promise: a referendum on self-determination for the Sahrawi people. But that vote never happened. Decades were lost arguing over who was eligible to vote and what the exact question on the ballot should be. An entire generation was born and grew up in refugee camps, waiting for a referendum that stayed trapped in UN documents and diplomatic speeches. For years, the conflict was frozen. Then, in 2007, a potential game-changer, Morocco presented its autonomy proposal. Western Sahara would remain under Moroccan sovereignty, but would have its own government, parliament, and control over local affairs. Algeria and the Polisario rejected it, insisting on full independence as an option. But over time, the diplomatic winds began to shift. More and more countries, including major global powers, started describing Morocco's plan as serious, credible, and realistic. The turning point was the United States' recognition of Moroccan sovereignty in 2020, part of the Abraham Accords that saw Morocco normalize relations with Israel. This shift reached a crescendo in 2025. A new UN Security Council resolution was passed, and its language was a bombshell. It explicitly endorsed the autonomy proposal as the primary basis for a negotiated solution. While it didn't eliminate the idea of a referendum in theory, it effectively framed autonomy as the only realistic path forward, sidelining the option of full independence. The vote itself was revealing: 11 in favor, a few key abstentions, and Algeria refusing to even participate, a clear signal of its diplomatic isolation and profound dissatisfaction with the outcome. For Algeria's leadership, this vote felt like a diplomatic earthquake. Decades of support for Polisario are now confronted with a UN document that sidelines the independence option in practice, even if not in words. So, what is Algeria's game here? Officially, Algiers maintains it is simply a neutral observer supporting the principle of Sahrawi self-determination. But a growing chorus of critics and analysts argue it's a proxy war. They claim Algeria uses the Western Sahara issue to strategically contain its rival Morocco, blocking its regional influence and its access to the Atlantic coast. Some analyses go even further, suggesting Algeria's military establishment leverages the Polisario issue as a survival strategy, It justifies massive military spending, centralizes power, and conveniently diverts public attention from pressing domestic issues like unemployment and political reform. Recent events have only intensified these accusations. Reports have surfaced alleging direct coordination between the Algerian military and Polisario forces. Following a reported Polisario attack near the town of Smara, the rhetoric from Algerian state media was interpreted by many as implicit support, fueling Moroccan claims that Algeria is not just an observer, but a direct party to the conflict. On paper, Algeria is just a supportive neighbor. On the ground, many observers say it looks like a sponsor, an armorer, and sometimes even the director of a proxy war. Morocco, meanwhile, has been playing a multifaceted game. On the ground, it has poured billions into developing Western Sahara, building new ports, highways, renewable energy projects, and universities. The strategy is simple: demonstrate that it can deliver stability, development, and a better future for the region's inhabitants. Diplomatically, Morocco has launched an aggressive campaign across Africa and the world, successfully convincing over 24 countries to open consulates in the territory, a de facto recognition of its sovereignty. Of course, critics point out this strategy is also backed by powerful lobbying efforts abroad and a tight grip on the narrative at home, where dissenting views on the Western Sahara issue are rarely tolerated. While tanks are silent, Twitter, TikTok, and TV channels have become the new frontline, with each side trying to win the story more than the territory. And that brings us to the information war. Go online, and you'll find yourself in the digital trenches. Pro-Morocco accounts flood the internet with slick videos of new infrastructure, quotes from UN documents supporting the autonomy plan, and maps showing an integrated, peaceful territory. They frame the narrative as one of national unity and progress. On the other side, pro-Polisario and pro-Algeria accounts share powerful images from the refugee camps, post historical documents about decolonization, and draw parallels with other independence struggles around the world. They frame it as Africa's last colony, a story of unfinished liberation. Both sides relentlessly accuse the other of using fake news, bots, and paid digital armies to manipulate public opinion, flooding hashtags and comment sections. Here's a lesson for you: if you only consume one side's content, you are not informed. You are drafted into someone's propaganda without signing up. But beyond the propaganda and the geopolitical chess, there is a profound human cost. For nearly 50 years, tens of thousands of Sahrawi refugees have lived in the harsh conditions of the Tindouf camps, utterly dependent on international aid, their lives held hostage by diplomatic stalemates. Families remain divided, split between the Moroccan-controlled territories, the Polisario-run camps, and a growing diaspora abroad. The cost is also regional. The border between Algeria and Morocco has been closed for decades, and diplomatic ties were completely severed in 2021. This has crippled trade, collaboration, and the simple human connection between two peoples who share a language, a culture, and a faith. The African Development Bank has estimated that the lack of Maghreb integration costs the region over 2% of its GDP growth every year. The real losers of this rivalry are not the generals, not the diplomats, but ordinary Algerians, Moroccans, and Sahrawis who pay with unemployment, isolation, and lost futures. And where are the global powers in all of this? Their hands are quietly shaping the conflict from behind the scenes. The United States and several key European countries like Spain and Germany are increasingly leaning toward Morocco's autonomy plan. They see it as the most realistic path to stabilize a critical region, important for security cooperation and future energy routes. Other global players, like Russia, maintain a position of strategic ambiguity, often abstaining in UN votes. Algeria points to this as proof that the international community is not united and that the conflict is far from settled. The reality is, both Morocco and Algeria are strategically vital. Algeria is a major gas supplier to Europe. Morocco controls key Atlantic shipping lanes. This competition for influence means that outside powers choose their words and their sides very, very cautiously. Behind every vote at the UN on Western Sahara, there are not just ideals, there are pipelines, shipping lanes, and intelligence reports. So, after all this, what are the shocking truths we are left with? Lesson 1. Colonial borders never really left. Lines drawn in European offices a century ago still decide who calls whom a traitor today, fueling a conflict that consumes national budgets and lives. Lesson 2. Ideology can trap entire regions. Algeria's regime tied its very legitimacy to supporting the Polisario, while Morocco made Western Sahara the absolute heart of its national cause. When narratives harden this much, compromise becomes a form of political suicide. Lesson 3. UN documents are powerful, but painfully slow. In 2025, the UN Security Council moved closer than ever to endorsing the autonomy option. Yet the refugees are still in their camps, and the online battles are fiercer than ever. And lesson 4, social media can educate, or it can radicalize. Every viral thread, every angry TikTok can either help people understand a complex history, or it can push them to hate their neighbors more. So we end where we began, with this conflict at a boiling point. If you're from the region, I ask you to ask yourself, are you defending justice, or are you just repeating a narrative someone needs you to repeat? And if you are watching from far away, do not reduce this to a football rivalry or simple memes. There are real people in camps, real closed borders, and a region that could be an economic powerhouse if it chose cooperation over revenge. I urge you to check multiple sources, to listen to Sahrawi voices from all sides of the divide, and to understand the very real fears and ambitions driving both Algeria and Morocco. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop in the comments. After hearing the story, do you think the future of Western Sahara is autonomy, independence, or something no one is daring to imagine yet? The real battle now is not only in the desert or at the UN, it is in what you choose to believe and share. Thank you for watching. I'm MJ Nye, and this is the MJ Pulse News Situation Room.